Well, surprise. Hello, and welcome to Trending Topics with BB. I am your humble host, Brooke Brown. I have not been on the podcast streaming nor recording any audio in a minute since the first episode of the year that I posted. Welcome aboard 2023. But I figured I'd get on the podcast and I wasn't going to make it a big deal because most of the people that listen to this podcast listen to this in the audio form or catch the video replays on YouTube or Twitch when they are available. It's usually available right now on YouTube in replay form, but Twitch and Facebook have maybe Facebook's still on there, on the Facebook page. Anyway, wherever you find the replay, feel free to check it out. But I wanted to get back on the podcast. There's been some, personal life happening, and I have a day job, and I'm also working on some other projects. So that has kept me from the podcast. And honestly, this podcast I've had for over a decade or on a decade, basically 2013, 2014. So when I started this podcast, it's been in various forms based on the technology available out there, but I'm here on the podcast. So for those that are unaware, there is an official website for this podcast, which is trendingtopicswithbbpodcast.com. All episodes are posted there. You also have links to all of the platforms where you can find this podcast, the social media, any updates, the media kit, which probably needs to be updated. But feel free to head to the website that is listed here if you're watching. Again, I will call it out as trendingtopicswithbbpodcast.com. Now, if you are a listener on any platform such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, or any place of those mentioned, please head to the area where you can leave a rating and a comment, hopefully favorable. This will help the algorithm suggest it. It also helps in general to other people that are scrolling through the podcast world to say, hey, what am I going to listen to? And maybe find this podcast and are like, oh, there's some reviews. So it's much appreciated if you do that. Also, there's some inside baseball, as they call it, some behind the scenes, because my consistency of this podcast has been varying in the past few years, and I have not been producing as many episodes when it goes into my podcast hosting platform, which is Anchor, because I switched over from Podbean to Anchor. Yes, I called this out. The reason I'm explaining this inside baseball is because I have recently gotten a notice that the monetization that I'm doing on Anchor is actually I'm going to run out of eligibility unless more people listen to this podcast. But until then, you can head to Anchor and click the support button. Any support, if you go to the official link, which is also within trendingtopicswithbbpodcast.com, and just click the support button, and you can support this podcast every month for as low as like $5. That would be wonderful to keep this podcast going. So if you feel so inclined to support this podcast monetarily, obviously not required, but much appreciated, please click the support button on anchor.fm, Trending Topics with BB, and there you can show your support. Because as I mentioned, the ads that you may have noticed for the last maybe 5 to 10 episodes will be going away because, that was it's a whole thing. Anyway, the podcast world is ever changing, and thus I'm still here, but, depending on who you are, podcasting is interesting. And that's a whole nother conversation for if I could go on a soapbox about the differences in the podcasting industry for 10 years, we'd be here for hours. But anyway, the point is, I wanted to update. So there's been some personal life updates. Some stuff, family stuff, not really going to broadcast that here, but that's been keeping me from podcasting as well as some other stuff. So For those that do know, I'm super into electronic dance music, and for the last few years, my annual trip in January to join the lovely GC fam, as we call it, on the Groove Cruise family, is now like a new tradition for me, and for more people. So I was on that in January. And for those that have been listening since 2020 or haven't, you can actually go back to, there's an episode where I did a recap of my first, when I went in 2020, right before the world shut down for the pandemic. So check that episode out. Um, and cool. So it's hard to describe GC Fam and GC if you haven't been. Groove Cruise, but it's fucking phenomenal. Um, therefore, check it out, that episode that kind of talks about it, but it gets better and better every year. This is my third one, and I will be going next year in 2024 on the 20th anniversary sailing of GC. And for those that don't know, you can use code BB Media Industries to save $50 per person on any bookings. However, I will let you know the sailing is over 90% sold out. So there's less than 100 rooms remaining already. But I wanted to let people who are on the fence or wanted to save a few bucks on their booking, you can use my code BB Media Industries, and that will give you $50 off any booking, which if you have 4 people in your room, that's a savings of up to $200. So it's worth it. So check out the possibility of getting on the Groove Cruise. But there's, like I said, there's not that many rooms remaining. And the lineup for next year is about to drop within the next month or so. And once that, for sure, it will be completely sold out. So make your decision soon. Just wanted to say that to join us. And if you have any questions offline or anything, hit me up on social media, and I would be happy to help you through that process of getting on the Groove Cruise. Like I said, I'm a veteran now, and I'll be my 4th one next year. So definitely check that out. Also, I think I mentioned this in Welcome Aboard 2023, which was the last episode of the podcast. I was working with a designer to kind of rebrand BB Media Industries, this podcast logo, and the blog, which blog/content create, I don't even know what you want to call it, but it's the Love of Music project. That's been on hold a little bit, and I thought it was going to be completed to unveil with any new episodes, but here we are with the same logos. So that's been an interesting project. I also mentioned on the last episode that I'm writing a book called The Modern Day Cult, which, if you are an avid listener of this podcast, will know that there's an episode where I describe what the modern day cult is and what I'm talking about. Hopefully we'll get that published. The goal was to get it this year. Don't know how that's going to happen. I've written thousands of words, but I still have thousands more to go. So not sure. And then along those lines, another project that I've been working on is that I started producing my own music and learning another digital audio workstation called Ableton. And also reinvigorated my love for playing my saxophones. So getting those repaired, hopefully we'll be practicing. Again, the goal for 2023 is to get some demos to some producers. We'll see if that happens. Stay tuned. So I've been a little bit busy. Thus, this is why the podcast has been on hold. Also, I've been waiting on confirmation of upcoming guests. It's one of those things where coordination of getting guests on the podcast is a lot of work. Well, this podcast is a lot of work to begin with, but that's one of the factors. And obviously I want to create good content because there's like a million podcasts out there. And specifically, if you're somebody that has a very well-known podcast, a celebrity of some sort, you probably see those podcasts. They do that a lot. They release episodes a lot more consistently than I have been doing, but here we are. So now that I've rambled for about 10, 11 minutes, I wanted to just kind of update with a short little bonus episode here, with updates of how you can support this podcast moving forward, which is to obviously go to the website and click that support button where you see it. Also, on every episode, you can contact me at the podcast, at ttwithbbpod@gmail.com if you have any inquiry if you have any needs, if you would like it to apply to be a guest, or you have any suggestions for guests, any friends, family, enemies that you would like me to chat about, please hit up that email and we will coordinate accordingly. So, without further ado, and the rest of your Wednesday, if you're watching this live, because there are a few people watching live, appreciate you tuning in. And those that will catch this in the replay, thank you. And be safe out there, everybody, and have a wonderful morning, evening, whatever time you're tuning in. Thank you.